Justine.
Hi, my name is Justine, as many of you already know. Today I'm going to be presenting on the business of interpreting. So this is my sort of form of a disclaimer. So this just gives you a little bit of background on where I'm coming from and why I'm presenting on this. I work as a coordinator as a sign language interpreting agency, and I am not a freelance interpreter. I've never really had the full-blown experience of working as a freelance interpreter. A lot of my experience actually comes from my peers who are freelance interpreters, people that I've worked with, also feedback and lessons that we've learned throughout our years with teachers, as well as taking some polls from you guys. Cool. So I compiled some of the questions that I often get as someone who is a student but also a coordinator. So wearing these sort of dual hats that I have, I get all these different types of questions, and these are really the popular ones that I've compiled, and also through my poll, through our Facebook group. You know, I've asked you guys what are the most common questions for you guys, and this is what pops up. So you have, where do I start? What agencies should I work with? What should I charge, or do I decide what I charge? Agency contracts and what are your obligations? Financial, so how do I do my own taxes? Do I do my own taxes? Benefits, things in relation to running your business as someone who's self-employed, and who are your coworkers if you're, you know, especially if you're wandering out in the field alone. So, I graduated. Now what? A lot of interpreters, I think especially when I was here in my first year and meeting some of the second year students, they would ask us, so what do you do? You know, what agencies do you work with? They started asking a lot of these questions. So there are really just various ways to work as an interpreter. You could work as a staff interpreter. You could work as part-time. You can work freelance. You can also do school-to-work internships, which I'll discuss a little bit more in the following slides, or a variety of the above. So sometimes people wear multiple hats. Let's see. Also, outside of wearing multiple hats of the different variation of this above here, they also are interpreter/actors, interpreter/dancers, interpreter/artists. Or something completely outside of the creative realm. It could be interpreter/coordinator, I don't know, that kind of thing. Also, people ask this question a lot too, interpreting, where can you interpret? So interpreting can my answer is usually interpreting can happen in most places where communication happens between two or more people. So I won't get too complicated here, but I just wanted to list some of the pros and cons of staff interpreting, working as a staff. Like, for example, if you work staff at a K-12 setting. So this is just to get you thinking about it. So, so many of the pros include that it often provides financial stability because you're working, say, for example, on 9 to 5 or a set number of hours day to day, so you pretty much have an idea of how much your check is what it's gonna look like each week. Let's see. Also, familiarity with the environment. This can be a pro and a con. So, being familiar with the environment helps us to know what to expect, and we get to meet our consumers and understand their communication styles and get to know what their needs are, and this helps us become better interpreters for sure. There's less uncertainty. And I'll just jump over to the con with that because it can be a con. It can become very routine. It gets boring, but also it can also let interpreters sort of be a little too comfortable, and they don't really find ways to grow from having the same experience day in, day out. Another pro is that it helps build relationships with your regular participants. So you actually find those relationships, you can actually understand them better, essentially. you know your schedule every week, so you're not really stressed out with, you know, trying to figure out your calendar. There's less variety, so that can be detrimental because you won't be able to experience other types of assignments that allow you to grow. And sometimes, but not always, taking on a staff position, you may notice that the pay is a little bit less because you're getting that stability, but at the same time, it also is compensated by benefits. So, pros and cons. In freelancing, a lot of it is pretty much the opposite of what I just described in the previous slide. So there are more opportunities to gain exposure to a variety of settings. So you're not just working in K-12, for example, you're working in K-12 and medical setting and social service setting and maybe theater. So you can do a little bit of everything if you wanted to and are skilled enough to do that. You can negotiate your rate based on various factors. So some interpreters may have a rate for weekday, they may have a rate for medical, they may have a different rate for legal. So it depends on various factors. Can be the complication of the assignment, how long, is it on a weekend, that kind of thing. And a lot of interpreters who do freelance tell me they enjoy it because they don't like staying in an office or staying in one place for too long. They find it challenging and it's exciting. And let's see. Right, so the cons is, again, it's sort of like the flip side. So if it can be unpredictable, which may be exciting for some no, it stresses them out. So you can be an interpreter, but not really like freelancing. And that's where the staff position helps. And oftentimes interpreters don't enjoy the fact that there aren't inherent benefits or holidays or sick days. Those are things that you have to allot money for and put that to the side. It's not automatically included in your check. So readiness programs, when I speak of readiness programs, these are just a few examples that I've, again, collected from people that I've met, people who indicated that these programs helped them a lot when they were starting out in the field. So you have Sorensen, School to Work. I know Dominic's all about it. Gallaudet University, I was actually checking out their website. They offer quite a bit of professional development and summer courses. So that's a great place to go if you feel like you're not getting enough from your interpreting training program. NTID also has a program where it's actually a sort of a paid internship. You get a stipend. So that one I thought was pretty cool, so I included that on my list. And Camp Mark 7 actually met someone who said that they gained so much of the experience that they didn't get from their interpreting training program from there because they were allowed to socialize and meet people and just completely be immersed in the language. So those are just a few. So, this is the biggest question I obviously get because I work in an agency. So the biggest question I get is, how do I know what agencies I should work with? Should I work with your agency? Is it good? I had one interpreter suggest to try them all, whether they're good or bad. Give them all a chance so that you have a really good sense of what a bad agency is. One interpreter suggested only working with deaf or interpreter-owned agencies. Another suggested sort of doing research and finding out which ones are most ethical. What I suggest is to share information with your colleagues. So, you know, get yourself out there, but also share information with your peers. You know, if you've worked at an agency and you may have had a questionable experience, find out if others have had that kind of experience. It really helps you to know what their reputation is over time as opposed to basing off of one experience. Also helps to know what the cancellation policy is. I recommend you all look at that. And take advice with a grain of salt, because I've definitely seen interpreters who've worked for, you know, a pretty good agency and then they're like, I hate that agency. Or you have one interpreter who's worked for an agency that has a really bad rep and they're like, oh no, they're great. So, you know, this is the reason why we suggest try them all. Negotiating rates. The answer is yes, you can negotiate. You have the power. You are your own interpreter. You are your own business. So some agencies do have tiered rates, so that's something to be mindful of when you're signing up with an agency. You should ask about those tiered rates if they do have them. But at the end of the day, you make your own decisions. You can say yes or no. Contracts. I'm not a lawyer, so this is going to be very, very brief. So interpreters often work with multiple agencies, and it's very important to read the contract thoroughly. So, if you sign up with an agency and they give you like a 20-page, very, very fine font contract, I suggest to say, thank you very much, I'm going to think it over and take it home. Don't just sign something because you're like so excited or because you feel like you're being pressured to. If they're like, nope, you gotta sign it or else, no, we can't hire you. They're always hiring. So just take it home, read it over, think it over, make sure that you understand what you're signing up for. I really believe in that strongly, and I think that's important. And ask questions. There's no such thing as a dumb question, definitely. Please ask. Ask away. Taxes. I'm not a CPA, so again, but it's good to meet with a CPA about your taxes. So I recommend maybe reaching out to peers, other interpreters who you can ask and see if they have a trustworthy CPA, someone that they've used for many years, that they love. That might be a great way to find a good CPA who is knowledgeable. Also, don't ignore them. Don't do that, please. And organize everything in advance. Someone actually once told me that if you organize everything in advance, your CPA charges you less. So those of you who aren't very organized, it's good to get on that. These are things that I've compiled, again, based off of other interpreters' suggestions, as well as my own suggestions from working at an agency. So this is more of the administrative side of interpreting. So you need to maintain your invoices, remember to send them on time. Don't send them 5 years later and expect to be paid, that kind of thing. Calendars, making sure that when you are confirming and you tell someone that you're going to do a job, put in your calendar, that kind of thing. Ensuring confidentiality, so have maybe a specific place at home where you do all of your paperwork and, file that away so that it remains confidential. Professional liability is suggested for many interpreters. Immunizations, especially if you're going to work in a medical setting or maybe even a K-12 setting. I'm not sure if that may be required. It's possible. RID membership and certification, it's always recommended. I don't know what's happening now, but once it's back, we recommend it. Following up on required paperwork. So for example, like timesheets, if you're doing a specific kind of job that requires that, be sure to follow up. Communication, so email, phone, someone's asking you a question or someone wants you to respond back to confirm, it's good to make sure to respond either by phone, email, that kind of thing. And marketing yourself, I think it's really useful to get yourself out there. Also get yourself into the deaf community, especially if you're moving into another state, because it really helps to know the people that you're going to be working with. Some interpreters have business cards, some interpreters have websites that actually help promote their various skills, especially if you're trilingual or you want to show videos of yourself, of your work, that kind of thing. Sort of what we're practicing with ePortfolio. Finding your people. I like to think that this program has been extremely helpful for me in finding my people, because we've gotten our cohort and we found our peers who we can actually discuss and debrief with. So I think it's very helpful, even if you didn't have a program like this, to find the people that you feel comfortable enough to debrief with and have these types of conversations with. If you have a difficult time finding those type of people, finding your people, I like to recommend these lovely organizations, shameless plug, like New York City Metro RID, Long Island RID, I didn't forget you, Dana, and New Jersey RID. And that's all. Thank you very much. Do you guys have any questions, comments, feedback?
It was great.
Yeah. A question. I'm curious about the interpreter who recommend finding an ethical agency. Did they happen to give any strategies on how one gets to the bottom if a company is ethical?
That is a very good question. I don't want to say because the specific thing I have in mind sort of gives away an agency, and I don't want to do that. But maybe one thing you can do is, like, for example, looking at a cancellation policy. So that's one example I can give in terms of, you know, if a job is canceled, how many hours, what is that time frame from the time that it's canceled to the time of the actual job do you have where you would still be compensated for it. So for example, many agencies have 48 hours, 24 hours, some are getting a little shorter, you want to kind of avoid that. So 48 hours, I believe, may be the industry standard. 48 hours or 2 full business days, I believe.
Yep.
Yeah, we don't have a lot of time, so we can have more questions.